Hello, it's Jake here, and today I'm going to share with you the real reason that I started this YouTube channel in the first place. Now, I've been collecting video games for almost exactly 3 years now. I started to think, how can I use my collection in creative ways and maybe show it off a bit in the process, and got inspired by people like the Gebs24 and Lazy Game Reviews. Now currently I have around 425 games, most of which are PS2 games. It's my favourite console, and quite a lot of PS1 games as well. I would have liked to have collected some big box PC games, but if you're watching from outside the UK you might not know this, but they're pretty much non-existent in the UK. So I just go for the bog standard PC games, which are usually incredibly cheap in charity shops, and you can find a wide variety of different PC games. My entire collection can be browsed through on collectors.com on the Collectors Cloud if you want to browse through it, and I'll leave the link in the description below. Now let's get into it. So starting at the top left here we have the Collector's Edition of Drakengard 3. I don't know a game more deserving of me buying the Collector's Edition. It's a brilliant game, and I'm a massive fan of the Drakengard series. It's unfortunate that there's no physical disc in here because Square Enix are absolute cockheads, and America got this same edition but with a physical disc. But it just means I'll have to buy the standard edition of Drakengard 3 somewhere along the line and put the disc in this box. And next to it here we have the Japanese version of Tobal number 1, possibly my favourite box art of all time. I'm not sure what it is about this box art that I like so much, but you might recognise the style as the same guy who does Dragon Ball Z, of course. Next to that is Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence. Definitely worth the money I paid for it. So many extra features and one of the deepest games of all time anyway. And of course I absolutely adore the box art. So these along the top, and also some of the ones in the collection, I will go through in greater detail in a separate video, but for now let's move on down to the PS1 collection. So straight off the bat we've got the two Oddworld games, Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus, and A Bug's Life. 3 of the best PlayStation 1 games, I'm sure you'll agree. Action Man, that's a really unique game with loads of different sort of elements to the gameplay, and a very ambitious one to say that it's a licensed title on the PS1. Alundra I wasn't a big fan of, to be honest. The first one is kind of a Zelda clone and I don't particularly like Zelda, and then Alundra 2 kind of did this weird 3D thing which looked horrific and also wasn't very good in terms of gameplay. Apocalypse starring Bruce Willis, that's an old favourite of mine. Bugs Bunny Lost in Time is another favourite. I've completed that game 100% not long ago actually. Casper, definitely a game I used to play through over and over again when I was a kid. Digimon World is a game that I've always wanted to complete but never done it because it's so ridiculously difficult. And then of course Dino Crisis and Dino Crisis 2. Both brilliant games in different ways. So I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan, and you'll see most of the Final Fantasy games in my collection. Final Fantasy VI has been lent out to a friend at the moment. This Dracula Resurrection game is a game that I played a lot when I was a kid. It has a brilliant atmosphere and is quite scary despite there being like no combat or anything like that. It just relies on its atmosphere. The first Dynasty Warriors game is actually a beat 'em up, if you don't know. Similar to Tekken and things like that, only nowhere near as in depth and quite clunky. I'm sure not many people would enjoy this game, to be honest, compared to the later Dynasty Warriors games. So here you'll see multiple copies of some of the Final Fantasies. That is because I've had some of these since I was like 7 years old. I got Final Fantasy VII for my 7th birthday, I think, possibly. Some of these probably aren't in very good condition, if I'm honest, but the ones that aren't in good condition I plan on rebuying at a later date. Here's one I got in Paris. It is Final Fantasy Chronicles with Chrono Trigger in there. Of course, exclusive to the US. Future Cop LAPD. If you haven't played that already, I strongly suggest you play it. It is literally my favourite game on the PlayStation 1. And it pretty much has the first ever iteration of a MOBA, I suppose you would say. And it's a lot better than most of the MOBAs that come out nowadays, I can tell you. At least in my opinion, I don't really find them that exciting. Kudelka, which is part of the Shadow Hearts series, which you'll see later on. I haven't actually played this one yet, but I've got high hopes for it. I definitely love a bit of horror in my RPGs, so here we have two versions of Soul Reaver, one of which is the special edition, which has the holographic front. So that's the special edition, and the standard edition is exactly the same but no holographic front. Reloaded, I have a funny story about this game. Basically I lent Aaron Broken Sword 1 and 2 on PC, and it was one of those crappy cases where you just cannot get the disc out, and he snapped it in the end. So I said, well, why don't you give me Reloaded in return? I don't think that was a fair trade in the end, but oh well. Metal Gear Solid, of course, we don't need to say anything about that. Monkey Hero, which was a game that I played a demo of, and playing the full version was actually quite disappointing because it started off really good, and then eventually it just kind of turns into a Zelda clone similar to Adventures of Alundra. Parasite Eve 2 there, I definitely want Parasite Eve 1 in my collection, even though I don't think it came out in the UK or the US, if I'm not mistaken. But Parasite Eve 1 I played an emulator of, and it is absolutely brilliant. And of course we have Resident Evil 1, 2 and 3, 3 being my favourite. Moving on down, we have Donald Duck's Quack Attack, which I haven't played in years. I got it quite recently, so I'm looking forward to playing that again. Rugrats Search for Reptar, I don't care what anyone says, it is a good game and it still holds up today. People say that, you know, nostalgia is blinding when it comes to this game. I don't think so, I think it's still a good game. Shadow Man, another one of my favourites on the PS1. Shaolin, I have fond memories of playing this with my cousin. We used to laugh at the bouncing breast physics. I think it was one of the first games to implement that. Sheepdog and Wolf, another phenomenal game. Spyro, of course. Spyro 2, I believe, is the best one. Wasn't keen at all on Spyro Year of the Dragon. I found it to be a massive step down compared to Spyro 2. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, of course, one of the greatest PS1 games of all. Siphon Filter 2, massive fan of. Siphon Filter 3, can take it or leave it really. And now we have Tenchu and Tenchu 2. This game series, I cannot believe they're not making it anymore. From Software did the more recent ones, and they really need to bring this back because, to be honest, A, I'm tired of Dark Souls now, and B, Tenchu is such an amazing franchise with so many great games in it that I think they're just doing the fans a disservice not to bring it back at this point. Tomb Raider, probably one of the first games other than Sonic that I really got into playing Tomb Raider 1 when I was a kid, with the full, like, I had a guide that got torn to shreds because I used it so much. Here is the Japanese version of Valkyrie Profile, which I got for maybe a £5, really ridiculously cheap, especially compared to if you wanted to get the English version. You'd probably pay at least triple that, which is unfortunate, but sometimes I just prefer getting the Japanese just for the hell of it. And here we have Suikoden. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the instructions in because it was resealed and I bought it, and then when I got it home, you know, there was no instructions. Looking back, I should have taken it back, really, for the price I paid for it, but hey ho. I wasn't really as into collecting then, I just wanted to play it more than anything. And above that I have a collection of original PlayStation magazine demos, which all had the Net Yaros, or Net Yarose, I don't know how you pronounce it, games in them. Hoping to get a full collection of them at some point, along with the magazines, which I used to have. I probably had all of them, but I threw them away like an idiot when I was about 14, 15 maybe. Behind Suikoden here we have my PSP games. Favourite of which, probably Crisis Core. Metal Gear Acid is also a good one. Star Ocean, Star Ocean First Departure was decent. I enjoyed it. I didn't really get too much into side content and all that stuff because I found it a bit too grindy. Then Second Evolution, I just thought it's the exact same thing pretty much, and there's just no reward in it anymore. It's just constant grinding in the end. Definitely prefer the later Star Oceans. The Resident Evil remake for GameCube. I used to have quite a lot of GameCube games, but when I was about 16 I think, all my games were stolen unfortunately, and I had Twin Snakes, Smash Brothers, all that stuff, and yeah, needless to say I was very upset when that happened. And over here also, because I'm running out of shelf space, is the box for the Kingdom Hearts 2.5 remix, Sims 2 Seasons, which is my favourite expansion of all the Sims games, and some wrestling games. Down here we have some recent pickups, Joint Task Force, a real-time strategy for the PC. Most of these cost £1 from a charity shop, by the way. Air Combat, I assume that's similar to Ace Combat. Cool Borders 2, Soul Calibur 2, Dragon Ball Z, Sims Busting Out, which I absolutely love. I used to play the hell out of that with the gnome cheat. Front Mission 4, which definitely didn't cost £1. Down here at the bottom left we have a series of Ghost in the Shell DVDs, which I'm borrowing off someone, so ignore that. We have Sonic Adventure and Choo Choo Rocket for the Dreamcast. Sonic Adventure is actually my favourite Sonic game, so... And then some original Xbox games. I only get the ones that are Xbox only, of course, because I'm not a fan of Xbox in the slightest. Here are some games that I'm getting rid of because they are either duplicates or boring as hell. Most of the boring as hell ones are these DS games. I haven't yet played a DS game that I actually enjoyed. I found them all really tedious and boring. Cooking Mama was expecting far too much of that game. It is literally just you cook things using various actions on the DS and you get no reward for doing anything really, other than you can say you've done it. Dragon Quest IX, possibly the most disappointing game I've ever played, because Dragon Quest VIII is so amazing and 9 just takes everything good about it and throws it in the bin. Pokemon White, I hate the new Pokemon games, so that's pretty boring. Like, you got Pokemon that are keys and all that shit. So yeah, that's it for this left shelf. That's all of the PS1 games I own, and oh, what's this? Suck It and See by Arctic Monkeys.